What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the BREWtally Speaking Podcast. I am one of your hosts, John, and with me, as always, is Daniel Tseri. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good, man. I've been here the whole time. You're the one that just showed up.
Well, I mean, I got to take a permanent vacation every now and again, which I guess makes it not really a permanent vacation, is it?
Not really. I don't know. I'm just staying home, going through my toys in the attic.
Okay. I, really pumped about this interview. It is with Matt McAndrew, vocalist of Slaves, whose latest album, To Better Days, is out next Friday, as of when you're hearing this, August 7th. This was kind of an interesting one. Indirectly, I think we've talked to 2/3 of Johnny Craig's old bands.
Yeah. I mean, again, like we talked about in the Kill Switch episode, we're just collecting them audio figurines, man.
Yes. Actually, I was kind of looking forward to doing this one because Matt is an interesting individual, not only, stepping into an already established band in Slaves, but kind of coming in literally right as a tour is about to happen behind a new record. And now you're the new vocalist who had nothing to do with any of that. And people are probably going to be not too keen on you right out the gate. So a lot to prove and big shoes to fill. That last record that Johnny Craig did with the band is really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, like stepping in as a new vocalist, literally the center point of the band is hard. Like you could swap bass players out until like the cows come home and nobody cares.
You did.
You could swap. Yeah, you could swap drummers out like it's a revolving door.
You did.
I mean, granted, there's only like 4 drummers, right? Like in the entire world.
Yes. Dave Grohl.
Yeah. Dave Grohl, Gene Hoglan. Yeah. I mean, there's just
Mike Portnoy.
Yeah. There's 4 drummers, but you can actually swap everybody out in a band except the vocalist and be fine. So yeah, stepping in into lead vocal, and like this isn't like Zayo or something like that where like anybody could just come in and like imitate the voice,
Jimmy Ryan.
Right. Well, exactly. Anybody can't just step up and emulate the voice. So like you've got a vocalist that is trying to, and you guys got into this in the interview a little bit, like, not necessarily like copying the old vocalist, but doing something that the fans are going to get behind. And in a way, it's still kind of proving yourself that like, not only can I perform the songs that you love and you're still going to love them, but when we record this new stuff, we're not going to go so far off of the beaten path that you're going to be alienated, which I actually kind of appreciated a little bit. Like it was kind of refreshing to hear somebody say that, like that they're still going to try to hold true to what the fans of the band would be expecting. Normally what we get in these interviews is, well, I'm me and everything is about me and I am just the best. And, you're going to forget all about that other guy. Like you get so much of that. And so it's kind of cool hearing somebody just be like, yeah, we wrote the record that we wanted to write for sure, but it's not going to like piss off fans of the band.
Well, I think the other thing too that gets a little bit interesting about this is, does the band, and I asked this, but it's like, does the band take a little bit more of a concerted effort to engage the singer in the writing process, knowing that it's going to be the first example of this new iteration of a band?
Yeah. I mean, that's... It like with it being a reboot, essentially. I don't remember if you used the word reboot or not in the interview, but like with it being essentially a reboot, it's really interesting how they're handling all of this, and I don't know, it seems fresh.
Yeah, I had seen the band on the tour that they were on, one of the first with Matt, and I don't know, I'd seen Slaves and I wasn't with Johnny Craig on a Color Morale tour, and I wasn't really a fan of it. Like Johnny just seemed like he was doing like vocal acrobatics the whole set, and I mean he does. That's what he does. He's got a great voice that has wide range. But I just felt like it was like a thing where it was like, it would be akin to like a guitar player just fucking soloing over everything the entirety of a set, and you're just like, dude, get it. You can do all these things, but like just want to hear the fucking song. And that's kind of how I felt when watching Johnny, is I was like, I get it, you can sing, please just like, you don't have to be so extra right now. And
right,
seeing Matt, and I wish I could remember how far into the tour we were at that point, but it was a thing where I felt like Matt was a little bit shy to me. Seemed like he was kind of at times stretching his vocal capabilities to try to mimic so much of what Johnny was doing. And I know that's kind of what's expected of him, but I think it's something that we've seen someone like, actually the last two guests we've had on, Jesse from Misery Signals and Jesse Leach from Killswitch, that's something that they've kind of both learned to do, is find their way through the other singer's material, make it their own while still doing the original version justice. And I'm kind of interested to see when Slaves gets back out on the road, to see if maybe this record has allowed Matt to be more comfortable with who he is within the band, to where when you see them live, it now is a lot more of what it is now, because he's more comfortable in who he is and the role he has within the band, and maybe not needing to be compared to Johnny at all times.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really hard, because it's going to happen, and it's just something that, like, for lack of a better term, you just kind of have to deal with.
Absolutely. Well, without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Matt of Slaves, and we will talk to you on the flip side. So I'll get right into it, because I don't know if you have anyone right after this. So
cool. Yeah. I just have somebody at 2, so we have a good bit of time.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. You're in California time. I was like 2. It's like almost 5.
You're like, this guy doesn't know anything.
Oh man, it's so hard. I'm sure being a touring musician, you have become very aware of time zones and so forth. That
yeah.
You probably never really thought you were going to have to be.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think I teach a lot of Skype lessons anyway, so just having students all over, it's kind of forced me to be aware of it all the time.
Well, I guess first things first, congratulations on the new album. I know not everyone's going to hear it for a little bit as of when we're recording this, but I know that fans have been clamoring for new music from you guys since basically you were introduced into the band. Mm-hmm. So, kind of a fun question, since, I've heard the album. What is one song that you're the most excited to see and hear people's reactions to?
That's a good question. I will. It's not a super straightforward question to me, only because sometimes the ones that I like the best aren't maybe the ones that people like the best, or sometimes the ones that I don't like the best are the ones that people do like the best. So I would say, as far as just what my favorites are, and by the way, I like all the songs on the record, but one of my favorites was Talk to a Friend. That's out. But again, that was one that I figured maybe people wouldn't go crazy over, and now it's been our most successful song that's been released so far. So, yeah, you just can never tell what people are going to like. But the song we have coming out this week, at the time of this recording, Like I Do, that's another one I think people are going to like, but you never know. So we'll see, man. I'd rather just let the chips fall where they may in terms of that, I guess.
It's kind of interesting. It's almost going to be a theme this week with a lot of the interviews I've been doing, or will be doing it, starting with you. Mm-hmm. Kind of the band reintroducing themselves to their fans. We're starting it off with you. You're the new vocalist. Slaves has been around for a while. Mm-hmm. This is basically a reintroduction to the band, but kind of almost like a rebirth of Slaves.
Yeah.
And do you feel that? Like, does the band kind of feel that when they were making this record? Like it's kind of a chance to kind of wipe the slate clean and kind of go, who do we want Slaves to be moving forward?
That's a good question. I think the emphasis was probably more aimed at trying to make a logical follow-up record to Beautiful Death. I think that was a record that the band really liked and that the fan base really liked. And I think we were more focused on trying to win people over and keep the current fan base. I think it's easier to say now that the songs have been coming out and that we've had so long to sit with the record that it's kind of easy to think in those terms and pivot. And I do think that we think of the current lineup as almost a new band, and this is sort of like a pivot album, and we hope people will keep following the band. But yeah, I think at the time of writing it, like I even remember going through and listening to Beautiful Death and just marking all of Johnny's notes that he was singing, just to like make sure that I was singing high enough to appease the naysayers. You know what I mean? Like stupid petty shit like that. But it was like, it's like, oh, there's a comment that says like I have no range, so let me make sure I like, what's like the standard? Okay, all right, I'll do some high C's. Cool. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's more where our heads were, instead of just like being like, we're going to go rogue and this is a new thing. I think we did feel a sense of responsibility to keep the fans engaged but I also think it just came really naturally. I mean, we wrote the record that we would have wanted to write anyways. I think the only benefit again for me was sort of having a chip on my shoulder and knowing that I wanted to really prove myself in a way that I haven't on any other records. Typically, I will write in terms vocally of like, okay, well, let me make sure that this is going to be super easy to do live and it's not that rangy. But all that went out the window. I was just like, I don't care if I'm shooting myself in the foot live here. Like I have to commit to record like all this stuff and then, deal with it later. So, because that's kind of like what everybody else does, right? You know what I mean? Like everybody's singing all this crazy stuff on the record and then they're just like, shit, can I do this live? So, I'm just glad that it's out there. I'm really proud of the album, and specifically, I feel like it's a good kind of calling card for like I got to do a lot of different vocals, So
absolutely. Something in talking to a lot of band people, and up until a little bit before the interview, I wasn't sure exactly who I was going to talk to, so it almost is serendipitous that it's you, because in talking to a lot of bands about their songwriting process, it's kind of become a surprise that a lot of people don't actually write with the singer in mind. Like, oh, what are they going to do in here? It's almost like a challenge. Like, well, here's what we got done. I hope you can figure out something that's cool over this. I didn't really think of you when I was doing it.
Yeah.
And kind of wondering, how involved were you in the songwriting demo process? Like, were you there kind of, sitting around listening to the music as it's being composed and arranged and kind of going like, hey, if you were to repeat this part, I think we could kind of come up with a cool vocal melody over that, or, how involved were you?
That's a really great question. So basically, how it went is we got there and the guys were super prolific and they were, some days maybe banging out at least the structure of like 2 songs and maybe 3 songs in a day. So before I knew it, we had, I don't know, I feel like there was, 6 or 7 songs that I would just leave the studio and go for a walk, and I was listening to these instrumentals on loop and just trying to play catch up and write to them. I sort of started to kind of pull my own hair out doing that. So then I did come back in the studio and talk to a friend was one that that hook idea came like with sort of, I was in the room and it was pretty fresh and I was like, oh, you could like, I just started singing that over it. You know what I mean? And so it's definitely more fun to be involved in that. But yeah, just, the guys had some riffs and ideas like, going into the process and, they're just able to work a lot quicker than I am personally, like not to come up with the melodies per se, but to write all the lyrics, you know what I mean? So, just in the fact that I was playing catch up, there was a lot of it where I was out in the parking lot or I'd walk down to this little lake and I'd just be trying to write lyrics. But there were some moments where I was there. But it was funny by the end of the record, I was like, all right, guys, I'm out of ideas. You need to like help me with some of these. So one example of that was Cursed. We finished writing the Top Line together as a band. For anybody who doesn't know Top Line, melody, lyrics, and I had some ideas and I was like, you guys got to help me write these verses. And I remember Felipe, I think, saying like, damn, these verses are kind of like long. Maybe we could do like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, see, exactly. Like where like obviously like they have a good sense in terms of just listening to music, absorbing, and arranging it and thinking about it from a guitar standpoint. But I'm like, man, this is going to be a long, this is going to be a lot of like words or whatever. So it was just kind of funny to have them on board and like be like, oh, they sound good, and then like, damn, maybe we could do a half verse, So and I guess that answers your question. But yeah, I mean, I think we're all super involved in the writing process, and I mean, there are a lot of bands that tend to lean more on like outside writers or producer. Shout out to Jimmy. He brought like a pretty solid demo of Heavier to to us, and that's how we started working with him. And then we just finished that as a band. But when we got in the studio, he really wanted to kind of hear what we could do on our own. So he also came up with the chorus top line for BREWtally, because I was like, I don't know what the hell to do with this thing. And yeah, but anyways, proud of the band for everybody writing and doing their stuff.
You know, as you were kind of making the comment about you were going back and listening to the last record and kind of getting a feel for, I don't want to call it like the pocket vocally, but I mean, it kind of is what it sounds like you were saying. And this might be a stupid question, but did you feel, if you did that, did you feel that you had the freedom to kind of explore whatever lyrical territory maybe you wanted to, or did you feel that there needed to kind of be certain themes that people would expect from a Slaves record? Did you feel kind of confined by that maybe, or more free to expand?
Interesting. It's something that I thought about. I mean, I got to know Beautiful Death pretty well just from touring it, you know. So
right.
I kind of knew what I thought that the fans would respond to, but I don't think that actually really had any bearing on what I was writing. I think honestly, again, these guys were coming up with great instrumentals, and they demanded a certain type of vocal to go with that, you know, whether it was to bring a certain level of intensity or melancholy or whatever. So I think that more than what the band had done in the past was just the tracks that were being created really kind of dictated what I was writing on top of it. And, you know, to be fair, that's the same band, right? So it would naturally have kind of a common thread from record to record.
So kind of speaking to that, and I don't necessarily want to get too personal,
Go ahead.
or imposed, but you know, lyrically, I didn't get the lyrics, but kind of picking out what I could hear from the album itself, listening to it a bunch, it kind of seems like this is dealing with an end of an album, or end of a relationship, I should say. You know, especially from like Wasted Youth, there was a line, I think I don't know if it's the pre-chorus or the chorus line, but basically we tied the knot, but you were tying a noose, for example. Even some of the imagery kind of used in Cursed, there's kind of seems to be this continuing theme of an ending of a relationship, a romantic one from what it sounds like to me.
Mm-hmm.
Was maybe that the case? And if so, was this really a cathartic experience for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the record in general is about relationships, and some of those relationships are, you know, can definitely be read as a romantic relationship. Others are more like a relationship with yourself. You know, for example, talk to a friend, or like I do. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a lot of stuff for me to personally kind of work through, and felt super cathartic to do that. You know, I had a lot to say. I'd had a lot on my mind for a while, and I was feeling fortunate making the record that I was doing at that time, because you know how things are, like you do kind of move on in life. And I'm sure there were things that really upset me when I was in grade school or something, that if I tried to write a real sincere song about now, I just would probably laugh about it, you know. So you do move on in your life. So I guess from a artist standpoint, which can be sort of masochistic at times in terms of being like, well, at least I'll get a song out of this, right? It was sort of realizing that I had a window where I was still really feeling all these things and processing, and that's at least the silver lining for me. And I think it did help me feel better about some things in my life, for sure. But it was surprising to me that I had so much to say, and that I guess it worked in this kind of new style of music for me, at least. So, you know,
I got to say, upon first listening, and then subsequently me just going back to this track over and over and over again, Footprints, I mean, holy shit. I don't know how that hasn't been released at this point, or if it has, I just didn't see it anywhere.
Yeah,
but,
it hasn't been.
Man, that has like crossover potential written all over it. Like, I even, as I was listening to it and kind of taking it all in the headphones I was listening to it in, I could even hear it, if you slightly modified it for a radio edit, could hear it on like country radio with those almost kind of pedal steel sounding swells that are in it. And, you know, just kind of given the diverse nature of that compared to almost anything else on the record, how did that song kind of come about? And do you have any fun stories or anything to kind of talk about that one? Because I think that's going to be one that a lot of people are going to be like, holy shit, this is really good.
Cool, man. Yeah, I mean, so that one started. That was an idea that Wes had. He's really great at coming up with these intricate finger picking acoustic songs, and again, you know, sort of a precedent from past records that they've done, which is great. And it's great for me because that's very much my wheelhouse of just sing super pretty over some, you know, melancholy love song. I'm like, oh, great, you know, like so. Really glad that the band, you know, gives me a platform to do something like that I'm really comfortable in. And even though I have other records that kind of do that, it's like I want the fans of the band as well to get that, and like you said, to do some of that crossover. But that was just something that he was jamming on, and just was kind of singing some melodies, and I got some kind of that footprints in the snow, kind of you left your mark on me. I was okay. I'm gonna run away and try to work out this lyric, and it took a minute, but we got there. So no real kind of fun story, just a really nice guitar part by Wes, and was lucky to hit upon some lyrics for that. I kind of picture that song being like, you know, there's only a couple songs on the record that are a bit more like positive. What's up, bro?
Oh, okay.
No,
I almost was going to say if you were thinking like a mid-tempo-y kind of song, since everything's kind of a little bit faster, but
totally.
No, yeah, you're kind of right on that one.
Yeah, I wanted it to kind of be like, I guess, like from my perspective, it's sort of like you know, alluding to sort of some kind of a death, whether it's like an actual death or like a metaphorical death, I guess, and it's just, you know, like a body being covered up by the snow or something, you know, sort of, and kind of very overly like romantic and melodramatic, and it's sort of that moment of like, hey, it hasn't been a good run, but I still really care about you, and this is kind of like I don't know, I'm just picturing like a Lost on the Iceberg Titanic moment, like just put that song in a movie and people are like, oh no. But yeah, there's that one, and then there's Cursed. I wanted it to be a song about we're really kind of in this together. Like life is really kind of beating us both up, you know. So I wanted to kind of offer that perspective. But besides those and the interlude, it's a bit more aggressive, I guess.
Yeah, I totally saw, you know, one of my a band that I think does a really good job of doing this. That's now kind of defunct or maybe coming back, I guess, is the Color Morale. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they like Garrett and them would a lot of times bring out an acoustic, get out in the middle of the crowd and kind of do a couple songs. And I was like, man, this would be a great opportunity for like that moment for you guys where you get in the middle of a crowd, bring an acoustic guitar, kind of have everyone be quiet, you know, maybe even sit on the floor if that's something they want to do. But you know, it was just, I saw a lot of potential for this song in a live set, in a, you know, commercial radio sense as far as, you know, where it could go. And, you know, even sync opportunities potentially if that's, you know, still a thing in some instances. But it's just the potential for that song I just felt like is massive. And the fact that you guys haven't even put it out, I was like, wow, like people I think are going to be, you know, saving some of the best elements for last and just really kind of catching people off guard. Because like I said, the way the record was going, that's not what I was expecting.
Oh, cool. Thanks, man.
So, I mean, the fact that it's almost like a palate cleanser in the middle of the record, I think, and then leading into Cursed, I think, you know, works as a really great 1-2 punch.
Yeah, thanks,
a
man.
certain vibe.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we're hyped with the flow of the album. I think makes sense. It starts to get a bit poppier towards the back half, which is
a little bit
fine. Yeah, fine by me. I'm down with all of it.
So, you know, we've kind of been talking about the lyrical themes on the record, and even the title of the record, I couldn't help but kind of smirk at when I saw it. You know, To Better Days. I feel like, you know, if you kind of listen to the lyrics throughout, it makes sense. But, you know, me being me, I'm kind of wondering if it's not sort of if people themselves, like other fans themselves, aren't going to come to the same illusions that I did, where maybe you're making a pseudo tongue-in-cheek reference to kind of what the band's been through leading up to the release of this record, and kind of saying like, hey, you know, here we are finally at the end of a lot of this shit and to better days. Yeah. Almost like a toast kind of.
Yeah. I mean, I think it should definitely be taken as a toast, and it's, you know, it can be in reference to the future. Absolutely. It can be maybe for some people in reference to, a sense of nostalgia or how things in their life used to be simpler and preferable to the current state of the world. I think most people will take it leaning towards the future. That's how we're interpreting it, but it's up for grabs. And yeah, I mean, you know, that like rain cloud that's hanging over the band's head, I feel like it's just it hasn't been an easy road. It's always something, and I think that's we're anticipating it, you know, and it is what it is, and it's we're just going to keep, you know, trying to rise to the challenge, and you know, if it was easy, everybody would do it, I guess. But yeah, it's definitely you know, should be taken as a sort of a metaphor for the band itself and like how we got to where we are. So
it's kind of interesting because I was wondering if there were any other potential working titles before you landed on that one.
Interesting. I don't think so. I think that was kind of a favorite early on, and it's, you know, it's taken from the lyric from Heavier. So yeah, I think that's the thing that I've always kind of liked to do with in my solo stuff is just grab a word or a phrase from a particular song. I always find it kind of confusing when people name an album after a song on the album, because you have to be like, wait, the song or the album? And I just kind of don't like that. So, but it's a good way to kind of tie it in, and you know, unless there's something that just makes sense, and you're like, oh yeah, this ties a bow on the whole thing, and yet we didn't say it, and it wasn't in one of the songs, but that experience hasn't happened to me yet. So for now, I'm just going to keep borrowing from lyrics. So
it's just always interesting because sometimes you'll see people, you know, like you were saying, it's a self-titled song, or self-titled record, or whatever, based on a song, and then it almost puts like a weird stressor on the song where you're like, I don't really know how this applies to the rest of the record.
True.
But then sometimes adversely, you know, sometimes you'll see people where it's like, you know, the concept of the record, you know, I think it should be called To Better Days. I think it's a cool title, so on and so forth. Right. And then almost maybe subconsciously, the lyrics and a pseudo theme starts kind of forming around when you have a title preemptively.
Right.
So it's always kind of interesting to kind of see what comes and how it, you know, what comes before and how it maybe steers the rest of the project in any way, shape, or form.
Definitely. Yeah, I get that.
Kind of a last question, just because, and it's kind of very vague, so I apologize, but I've not had the opportunity to talk about this with someone who actually has gone through it, and I think you know where I'm going to go.
Okay.
But the thing with the voice, so something I actually was pitched a while ago, someone that was going to be on an upcoming season of The Voice, and you know, that's when it kind of confirmed my thoughts of a lot of smaller labels maybe putting artist developmental people in this program to where it makes the consumer, because that's really what that would turn into, feel like they were a part of an artist's rise. Like, oh my God, I was there from the moment I saw them at the open auditions thing or whatever, and I knew I loved them. And it makes them feel like there's an ownership with the fan base. And it's basically like cheating the experience of going and finding a local band or seeing the first of four on a package tour and feeling like you're growing when you found that band or that artist. And so as such, I wanted to kind of know, did you see a lot of that in your experience of doing that, going through The Voice? Did you notice that there were a lot of maybe pre-hand-picked people that were kind of getting through?
You're saying from like a label standpoint?
Yeah, that basically labels will shop that show. They're artists who aren't known, but they're still technically signed on a developmental deal.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything of that. I mean, to me, that would be really would kind of clash with the whole thing of Republic Records being a like integrated part of the show. So basically, like if you win, you get a record deal with Republic. If they like you, you get a record deal with Republic. So that doesn't really make any sense to me, just in my own personal experience. I mean, that, you know, I did really well on the show, so I was roped into a contract with them. You know, I didn't even have the option to sign with anybody else. So yeah, I don't.
Do you feel that was detrimental at all? I mean, kind of speaking to that, like the fact that maybe that label isn't the best fit for you, potentially, that you could have gone somewhere else and maybe had a better shot at a solo career right out the gate.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I don't have any issues with the show. I think that the label that they have involved, Republic, just doesn't really care that much, from my experience, in terms of looking at the talent that is brought to them every season. I mean, it's hard because there's 2 seasons a year and there's a lot of people, but I would say at least once a year there's, somebody that they could see as a really great viable talent. And it's hard because that's supposed to be the promise of the show, is that if you win, you get a record deal. And a lot of times they just say, nah, and they just don't even track anything with anybody. But again, that would be the label that you'd be going with. So I think for me, it was a matter of like, look, do I try out for this thing and take a chance, or do I just stay in Philly and play shows around for free and just never do anything in music? Because I had been trying to do it myself, like the old fashioned way, so to speak, and I'd played almost every venue in Philly the whole time I was in college, and I just recently graduated. And I don't necessarily think that I would have ever got anything going on my own, So for me, it really was a really great platform beyond just being a great educational experience of really learning a lot and making a lot of really great friends. Like you got to think about, like, the voice casting does all this work and puts all these people together. It's like, it'd be so easy to form a band or something like that from that, even if you don't make it on the show, So for me, dude, really positive experience. I mean, I was on the label. That wasn't great. I was only on there for 10 months. Got to put out a song with them. I got to tour with Maroon 5 and Plain White T's and American Authors, and it was cool, man. And like, the only thing that's weird about being on the show is that, it gives, like certain bands have maybe, they have a lot of success amongst their fan base, amongst people who know them, but they don't have that much fame. Or maybe certain bands have a lot of radio play, but then they don't really sell a lot of tickets. Or maybe bands that sell a lot of tickets are never on the radio and whatever. And so the winning formula you would hope would be everybody knows, let's say like a Post Malone or something. It's like everybody knows who he is. He sells tickets. He's on the radio. He's got high socials. All this kind of stuff. So to go on The Voice, it's like you haven't actually moved the needle at all in your music career, because you've just been on the show. But now you're famous to the point that you get stopped everywhere you go in the country. So it's like a weird. It's like there's this one part of your journey that's like the fame is maxed out, and then it's like, but you haven't really done anything yet. And because the whole point of the show is for a promise to do something. Now, luckily for me, I had a solo EP that I put out right before the show that I sold a lot of records. I sold a lot of solo records just and get to keep all the cash, and it was great. Just from the exposure I got on the show, and also got a lot of fans of my actual singer-songwriter music. So again, I'd done that before the show. Would any of those people have ever heard my stuff if I didn't do the show? Maybe not. I don't know. So for me, I don't have any regrets about it. And bro, even linking up with the band, they looked me up, and the first thing they saw was a video of me performing on The Voice, and they heard 10 seconds. They're like, okay, call him. So I don't personally have any complaints about it, man.
Yeah, no, it's funny. When people ask why I watch a show, and this is such a stupid thing, but Nate, the drummer, Nate Morton, that dude just rips. And I remember watching him on the Making the Band In Excess and shit like that, a decade or so ago, and falling in love with his style and shit. So when I saw he was part of the house band, I was like, oh man, I need to watch this because man, that dude rips. Dude,
the whole band is killing for sure. And talk about a grueling schedule. They have to. So there's over 100 people that go in for the blind. So not, only 12 people a team or whatever, it fills up, but there's usually over 100 per season. And, so they have to learn and record all those songs in a couple days or something. It's crazy.
Yeah. I could put them right up there with the Roots as far as what they have to learn.
Absolutely.
Every show.
For sure. Wild.
Well, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you got to jet and go do another one, but looking forward to everyone hearing this record. Where can everyone find you or the band online?
It's Slaves Official online. Myself is Matt McAndrew Music, or just Matt McAndrew. should be pretty easy.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, buddy. I'll catch you.
So that was my conversation with Matt McAndrew of Slaves. Again, their latest record, Two Better Days, is out next Friday, as of when you're hearing this, August 7th. Pre-orders are still live over at slaves.merchnow.com if you would like to pre-order the record still. They have vinyl. They have a bunch of merch bundle options, so go pick this record up. It's actually really good. Wasn't entirely sure what I was going to get when we got the link to this, and was pleasantly surprised at how well and cohesive it was. I think a lot of longtime fans of the band are going to enjoy this record, and I think maybe they're going to get some new people on board as well. So lots to look forward to, and I kind of feel like the album title is a little tongue-in-cheek.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a little much. It's fine.
Something that I actually brought up in this interview, and I don't know if I just didn't articulate it very well or whatever, but has since become a pretty big plot point for the band right now, is, I had asked, was there a potential to change the name, given the fact of, just trying to distance from what the band was and some of the problems from Johnny being in the band and so forth. And he was like, no, no. And then, literally the day after I did this interview, there goes the press release that Slaves are going to change their name. To what, I don't know. But
it's probably a good call.
Yeah. I definitely understand why, but it is one of those where it's like, I wonder if he knew, or it was just like, oh, I'm not necessarily going to say yes, and then, kind of ruin potentially the press release coming the following day. But it was just so weird. Literally the day after I did this interview, here comes this news that they're changing their band name. And I was like, what the fuck, man? I asked you that question.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that can be a little frustrating with the time, the time lapse. But yeah, it's kind of frustrating.
It was also it was fun talking about The Voice. I don't know if Dan watches that show at all. Probably not. But it's a long suspicion I've had that it's not exactly as it seems from what you see on TV. I feel like there's kind of some behind the scenes stuff that makes it a little less on the, up front with how it's done. So I don't even know if I told you this, that we had been shopped someone that was going to be on The Voice preemptively before the show even came out. And I was like, all right, sure. But that really furthered my thoughts that they were picking unsigned developmental artist kind of deals and kind of putting them into the contest, knowing that they were going to get at least on the show, maybe not win, but I don't know. I still feel like there's a lot of potential things that aren't as they seem on shows like that. I feel like maybe because sometimes watching The Voice, you'll see someone that's just got a phenomenal voice, and then no one turns around, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, there's some kind of pre-screening or something going on with that, where they just, because it's television, I think a lot of the time they'll just, when they're screening people, the people that are the most interesting and the most outward are the ones that kind of get it. So maybe you have a great voice, but maybe you're just not that interesting of a person, which sounds really harsh saying that out loud like that. But that's also why you'll be tearing your hair out wondering why somebody is not a great singer but still on the show.
Well, that's the one that pissed me off and really started making me second guess the validity of what's presented as the show was when Cassidy Pope ended up on it. Because if you remember her at all, she was in a band called Hey Monday, and they were on Fueled by Ramen. They did Warped Tours.
Yeah.
They were, for their time and what they were a part of, they were kind of a big deal. They never were the big band, but they were a decent enough band that had a pretty good following. So when she ended up on the show and then kind of went more a country route and then ended up winning with Blake and having a country career now, it's why? It sounds shitty to be why do you deserve a second chance over somebody else who hasn't even had that opportunity? But it was weird seeing that happen, and I was like, that seems a little put on. But then, what was that kid's name? Billy Gilman or whatever?
Yeah.
Was on and didn't even make it that far, and I was like, oh, maybe that disproves my theory.
that kid had a hit single, yeah.
Yeah, way bigger than Cassidy Pope ever did.
Right. It's just, it's weird. And it seems to me they tend to gravitate towards people that are just total train wrecks. Because that's entertaining. That's what the people want.
I remember when the dude went on that did the Cupid Shuffle, and he sang his own song, and they turned around, they're like, "Wait, it's you. This is your song. Why didn't you do something else that showcased your range?" And he was just like, "I don't know." It was so weird.
This is the song that people liked. I don't know. Get off it. Yeah.
All that aside, though, this is a fun, quick little chat with Matt. Again, the record is still up for pre-order right now, slaves.merchnow.com. Pre-order To Better Days. They have a bunch of merch bundles. Go support these guys, especially right now because they can't go out and tour, and that's a real bummer way to put out a record when you can't really support it. And if you would like to keep up with all things Slaves, simple enough. Facebook at Official Slaves, Instagram and Twitter at Slaves Official for the time being until they have new socials. And if you would like to keep up with Matt, you can find him on Instagram at mattmcandrewmusic and on Twitter at mattmcandrew. And Dan will tell you where he can be found, potentially until he changes his name.
Oh, yeah, probably not. Dan's pretty safe, I think, for now, until some dude named Dan does something horrible. But yeah, I can be found on Discography Discussion. That's hilarious. You found me.
You're like a shitty Waldo.
Absolutely. Where am I at? Yeah, front and center. Yeah, I can be found on Twitter at Discuss Metal Dan. I can be found on Facebook under Daniel Terry. You can find my other podcast, Discography Discussion, and Discuss Metal at discussmetal.com.
And if you would like to keep up with all things this podcast, you can find us simply enough at brewspeakpod.com. If you would like to follow our socials, brewspeakpod.com on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Check out our YouTube channel. We have a bunch of videos. If you haven't already, go back, check out that interview we did with Jesse Leach from last week. And some of our Instagram lives, we're putting them over there. We're dropping them into the feed. So if you would like to check them out visually, you can do such over there. If you'd just like to listen to them, they're going to be popping up in the feed. So check them out. And forthenomads.org. We talked about it last week. Still going. Round 4. A lot of cool shit. It's not up currently as of when we're talking, so I'm not necessarily going to say who is in it, but just know that I'm sure I'll be sharing a lot of the people that I've been reaching out to be a part of this. Go over to forthenomads.org, donate if you can, bid on anything that is of interest to you. All the money goes back to people who are out of work right now because they can't tour. And it's just for a great cause. Has raised over $100,000 in a little over 4 months, and couldn't be prouder of my friends for doing something when no one else would. A lot of people would just be like, "Oh fuck, I'm out of a job," or "Woe is me." And Frank and Tater basically picked themselves up by their fucking bootstraps and did something for everybody else when no one else was willing to. So major props to them, as well as major props to our sponsors. Starting with rockabilia.com, head on over to rockabilia.com. They have over 500,000 items in their online store, all officially licensed through the bands and so forth. So not only when you buy a shirt are you supporting Rockabilia, but you're supporting the bands as well. And we can also support you financially a little bit if you use our code BREW15 and get 15% off your total order. So it's a win-win-win all the way around. We love saving you guys money. And another way we can save you money and make you look good in the process, On Point Pomade. Go to onpointpomade.com, use the code BSP15 and get 15% off your total order. Keep your beard and hair looking on point. And lastly but not leastly is The Bean Bastard. Head on over to thebeanbastard.com and get you some delicious coffee. Those guys are supporting essential workers, and we want to support them for all that they do. And for the BREWtally Speaking Podcast, I am John.
And I am Dan.
And we will talk to you all next time.
Fucking sucked. Oh, that fucking sucked. Shao Kahn, what'd you think?
That was pathetic.
Yeah. Coach, what'd you think? Okay. I mean, I knew it was gonna fucking suck, but I think those guys were a little rude. Austin Powers?
How about new?
Okay, I thought we were gonna get the Austin Powers vote. We did not. John, use that for your podcast. It fucking sucks, but you knew what you were getting into. It's your own fault. It will result in less listens. You're gonna see a decline in listeners if you start the show with that. You're going to see 30 seconds in, the number will plummet. And I will be there at the bottom of the plummet saying, I fucking told you, don't use this fucking riff. It sucks. But it's yours.